You know, I love reading. Obviously, thank you. But the thing is, I either don't make enough time for it, and I have this slight attention problem where if I don't have a set time for the things I want to do, I will just do them for maybe 2 minutes and then my brain will start thinking of something and I just stop doing that thing. Which is why when I was studying for exams, I would actually set a timer for my study sessions so I would know exactly when I can stop. When I was a child, I used to read all the time. I could read for hours and hours. I could spend a whole night reading without even seeing the time pass. But as I grew up, I entered middle school, high school. Other things tickled my fancy, and my brain would start becoming scattered. And I just stopped reading at that time. I rekindled my love for reading in 2019 when I entered university. And that's when I realized I had this attention problem. So I have decided to tackle this issue once and for all, hopefully. So for the next week or so, I am going to force myself, set like a timer, force myself to read for at least 1 hour a day. So the plan is as follows. I read every morning when I'm drinking my coffee. I don't usually track the time I spend reading when I'm drinking this coffee, but it's at least half an hour, so that can get at least half of the challenge done every day. So the books I'm planning on working with this week are first of all Babel, which I need to finish, and then I'm gonna move on to Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is the French edition, so it's called Piranesi, but it's Piranesi. Babel is a historical fiction. We follow the story of Robin Swift, who's an orphan from Canton in China. He's been brought to England by a professor, Richard Lovell, who educates him in Latin and Greek and English in order for Robin to join the Royal Translation Institute of the University of Oxford, which is also called Babel. I'm a good chunk of the way through. I think I'm like 400 pages in, a bit more than 400 pages in. So at least 1 hour a day should be enough to finish it in like 2 days. And then I'll move on to Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is my understanding of this book is that we follow this character Piranesi. I thought it was this character on the cover, but it's not. But we follow this man Piranesi who lives in this very weird infinite house where there's the sea and there are lots of statues, and I've heard really, really good things about this book, so I'm really eager to get into it and dive right in. But before that, I'll finish Babel first. I hope to be finished with those two books by Thursday or Friday. That would be wonderful, actually. And then I'll pick another book to read and get going. So my goal with this sort of challenge, whatever you want to call it, is to actually implement a good routine for myself to read at least 1 hour every day instead of reading just little paragraphs or one page or two and then get distracted. I want to make more time for reading during my day and implement that in my day-to-day life. A little update on the challenge, predicament, shenanigans I am forcing on myself. I have found my first hurdle, my first problem, my first obstacle. It's that I do like to read at night before bed. However, considering now I sleep at 3 to 4:30 a.m., it's a bit hard because I just get into bed and I collapse. So the reading time I was meant to do before bed is just not doable because I'm not fixing this sleep schedule right now. This is a problem for future me. Current me will not deal with that. Still, I've started Piranesi. I finished Babel yesterday. I finished Babel and I started Piranesi. I love it so far. I really love the main character, Piranesi. I love him. I love the other. I'm not very far into the book. I'm like 40 pages in this edition I have, which is barely in part 2. So like I said, I've also finished Babel yesterday in the morning. The only time I read yesterday, to be honest. We're off to a great start, really. Once I've gathered my thoughts about Babel, I've noticed I have a lot of negative things to say. So I'm gonna preface this by saying I loved the book. I really liked it. I liked reading it. It was something, an easy read for me. I didn't want it to stop. Basically, I didn't want it to stop. So let's get that out of the way. No matter the negative things, I will say I liked the book. I remember when this book first came out, it was literally everywhere. It was hailed as the new secret history, the new age of dark academia. Listening to that, you think there was whatever, before and after Babel. It is eminently well written. It's easy to go through. The writing is straight to the point, gets the point across. Her writing is not like purple prose. It is quite hard to make a commercial fiction out of a book which is just pages and pages of etymology lessons, but she did it, and dare I say this is an even easier read than The Poppy War was to me. I'm not gonna try to compare the two books at all. So this book is a great gateway to imperialism and colonialism. This is a good entry point, a good introduction. It definitely tickles your curiosity, and you do end up wanting to know more about these topics, which, if it was the goal of the book, this is well done. Made me curious. I do not know nothing about imperialism, but Kuang's own research and academic background do shine through in this book. It's well researched, and the book would have been a perfect historical fiction. But at things stand, this is meant to be a fantasy book. It does have magic in it. It's magical realism. It's an alternate history, speculative fiction kind of book, with the added use of magic and silver, specifically to 19th century Britain. And that is where we start to have a little problem. Nothing has changed in the world with the addition of magic. Colonial empires still plunder from their colonies, just they add silver to the tab. Everything is exactly as it is in our current world, but you just add the use of silver bars with translated words engraved on them. In my eyes, I would say that R.F. Kuang was a bit shy with her alternate history. She didn't want to change too much about the world. I'm not gonna try to assume why, because I'm not in her head. I can't know exactly why she didn't go through with the speculative aspect of it. I can't tell why she didn't just go all in with this new world that she's creating. That's it. That is an alternate reality. So she just added magic. She just added silver without showing us the ramification of them, the real effects that a colonial empire with magic could have on the colonies and the countries that it's plundering from. I will allow myself to be as shy as R.F. Kuang in this and not get too cocky because I'm not that knowledgeable about the British Empire. French Empire, yeah, sure, I know things about it. The British Empire, not so much. So I'm not gonna talk about what I don't know. So what I mean to say by this is that the world building and magic are there just because there is no real effect, no change to the world with the addition of magic. The magic system is actually interesting because you have those silver bars. I think there are bars, I don't know if they're round or whatever. I imagine they're round, where you engrave words in English and a translated meaning on the other side, and you can have a sort of nuanced effect instead of the effect that the English word carries. This nuance effect in the bars is the only sort of nuance this book has. Babel tackles topics of imperialism and colonialism in a way that is just not so subtle. The message, the rhetoric the book is trying to convey just comes at you, hitting you with the force of 1,000 silver bars, coming at you hot. Had I not known the effects of colonialism and imperialism and the countless countries that suffered from it, this book made sure to remind me of that at every single page, over and over, to the point it just becomes a litany of all white people are evil. Because in the book, it seems like all white people are evil. I cannot think of a single nice white British person in this book, except maybe Mrs. Piper, but she probably said an offhanded remark at some point. It seems to me that Babel just doesn't trust the reader to pick on subtext and subtleties, which is made even more obvious with the constant extra-diegetic footnotes there to remind you that something racist a character said is in fact racist, or that the British Empire gained its wealth from plundering and taking it from other countries. But in the end, they wound up being redundant and pulled me out of the story way too often. To give you an idea of the usefulness of those footnotes, imagine you're watching Game of Thrones, and every time Ramsay Bolton shows up and does anything, you have a voiceover, the video stops and you have a voiceover telling you this behavior is abusive and bad. This is basically how the footnotes work in Babel. Now to the characters, I liked them for the most part. They could have been a bit more fleshed out, but we'll get to that in a minute. So we follow this group of 4 people. They call themselves a cohort. So you have Robin, the main character, Rami, Victoire, and Laetitia. They're all part of a sort of minority group at that elite, all-white, all-male boarding school. So we have Robin, the main character. He's a British Chinese man who's been orphaned in Canton years ago, and he's been brought to Britain by his guardian, the Professor Richard Lovell. That's the thing, when you read, you just don't know how to pronounce everything. You have Rami from India, brought to England after his father's employer, so the potential in him for languages. You have Victoire, a French girl who is originally from Haiti, right after the revolution. And you have Letty, an English white woman. They become fast friends. They go to school together, they do homework together, they go to cafes, they laugh, they have fun, and honestly I would read a whole book of just these four having fun, because I love them very, very much. You just have to leave out the unpolished discourses about colonialism and racism at the door. Because those characters, as much as I love them, they just felt like mouthpieces for the themes the book is trying to tackle. They don't feel like characters, they're allegories. They're not living those things in a way. It just sounds like the 21st century understanding of racism, colonialism, sexism, imperialism. That's a lot of isms. And transposed in the mouths of Victoire, Robin, and Rami. Like I said, I really, really like this book. Don't let this whole negative rant, make you believe that I didn't like it. I will definitely reread it, maybe in a few years, maybe when I have educated myself more on the British Empire, because this book managed to make me want to know more about this part of history that I had not been taught. Gotta educate yourself at some point. We are living, thinking human beings, so you cannot just take what is given to you and never try to know more. So this book managed to do that to me, at least, and I'm sure to many other people who don't know about the British Empire. So it is a good story of itself, but it's just that, I think, a story to me. To me, like, the value of this book is an entertaining story. As a message, as a lesson, I'm not sure what it's trying to convey. That racism is bad, that colonialism has horrible effects, that they have horrific consequences on the colonized. We do know that. So I'm not sure. Maybe the necessity of revolution. I'm not gonna go into spoilers, but that aspect isn't developed either, in my opinion. So what is this book trying to tell me? I did love the book, I'm just confused. A quick update on Piranesi. I started it yesterday. I'm around 30% of the way through, and so far I really, really like it. I love our main character, Piranesi. I'm just in love with those earnest, eager, how can I say, just candid characters. Basically, I love that kind of main character who's not into scheming. He wants to explore the world and make offerings to those skeletons that he sees in the palace. I love him, and I have this weird suspicion that the 16th person they're talking about is us, the reader. I feel like this is breaking the fourth wall. I find that really, really interesting. This is a small theory I have, so I'll keep reading to see if I'm right or not. But I really like that idea, honestly. I've felt a bit under the weather today, so I haven't read a lot of the book. I still read about half an hour today, so I still have another half hour to go, which I'm going to get to right now. It is around 1 in the morning, so I'll get that last half hour done before bed and get to sleep early. Earlier than I'm used to. this is the end of this challenge, the end of the week. Today is Friday. So happy to announce I've finished both books. Obviously, I finished Babel and I finished Piranesi today, this morning. So I'll talk quickly about Piranesi before moving on to my conclusions on this scientific experiment that I did this week. So, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I'm going to balance my negative review of Babel. I don't even know why it was so negative, because I really liked the book. But I guess I'm very nitpicky like that. But this one, nothing bad to say about it. I loved it. I read it in 3 days, which is very... It's not that often that I finish a book in 3 days. I loved it. I loved it from the first to the last page. I couldn't put it down. Like, I wanted to read it at any given time. I didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to keep reading and know what's going to happen to Piranesi. And I know I said weird things in the previous segments. Those were just wild theories I had while reading the book. This book is unlike anything I've ever read, not just in the style, because I don't read lots of books in epistolary style, like letters or journal entries, which is the case with this one. But even in execution, in story, I'm really glad I decided to start this sort of challenge with, well, aside from Babel, with this book, because reading 1 hour a day of this book was a breeze. It was so easy to me, so I didn't even see the time pass. I didn't think, oh, I wish I was doing something else right now, like I usually am. Even though I'm loving the books I read, there's still this part of my brain that says, oh, I should be watching a show, I should be drawing, I should be doing anything else, even cooking. Sometimes I get this weird thing where I have all those recipes in my head. This is irrelevant. So I adored the character of Piranesi, his curiosity, his kindness, his desire to explore and know more, and the almost scientific way he compiles his findings and his thoughts in those journal entries that we read. Actually, those are what we read in the book. So we spent the first half, or maybe not half, but the first part of the book exploring the world where Piranesi lives, his house as he calls it. We get to know about the sea that sometimes threatens to drown everything. We learn about the statues and the skeletons that he makes offering to, and even the other that lives with him sort of in this house that he helps finding a sort of scientific breakthrough, kind of. So it's only after the third part, because the book is divided in 7 parts, and it's only in the third part that we discover that there's something more going on than just Piranesi lives in this weird house that he explores. So if you're someone who likes to be in the thick of the adventure of the story straight away, maybe you will find this a bit slow at first, but I promise, just push through it a little bit and I'm sure you'll love it just as I loved it. So the book itself is shrouded in mystery. Who is Piranesi? Because he says it himself at the beginning, sort of. He says that he doesn't think Piranesi is his name. So who is he? What is he doing in this house? How did he get there? And who is this other that he helps and that he talks to? Even Piranesi himself doesn't have the answers to these questions, but then he discovers the existence of a third person in the world, and then a fourth, and that puts everything he holds true and he believes into question. And then he starts exploring more and more of this world and gathering more evidence of other people existing in this universe other than him and this other. I do not like to give star ratings to books for a personal, not personal reason, it's not personal, it's just I haven't yet found a rating system that I like, but if I were to give it a starred rating, I'd say it's probably going to be a five stars book to me. It's definitely going to be featured in my favorite books of all time list at some point, and I will recommend it wholeheartedly to anyone, literally anyone. you all have to read Piranesi. As for the challenge part of the video, which is the point of this whole video, is 1 hour a day enough to finish the books? I guess no, because I definitely read more than 1 hour a day and I finished the book in 3 days. So I guess to me, with still things to do in my life and again a scattered mind, I'd say 1 hour a day wouldn't be sufficient to finish a book, maybe in a week. But if I want to finish a book faster, no. I think I'm gonna actually be able to start implementing that in my life, those reading for an hour at least a day. I think that's something that I have developed. It's a habit that I have managed to kind of develop. And I think it's gonna be more present in my life, which was the main goal of this whole week. So I'm actually satisfied with the outcome. So thank you so much for watching me yap and ramble about books for I don't know how long this video is going to be. Until next time, stay curious and keep reading.